Morning, everyone. I thought I would give you a look at this SG double neck guitar. It's made by Epiphone. Uh, when I got it at a real bargain, about a third of the original price. And the reason why I got it at such a good price is because in the guitar store, the 12-string side, the guitar was dropped and it cracked the neck at the headstock. So I'm going to be repairing the headstock by, let me get down here and see if you can see it. You can see the crack right there on this side. And then I don't know if I can get around here where you can see the crack on this other side. There's the crack on the other side. It doesn't go all the way around the neck. It's just on each side, but it compromises the neck just enough that when you string it up, it wants to pull forward. So what I'll do is make a jig, and then I will add 2 pieces of wood. I'll slot it with a router, and then I will insert the 2 pieces of wood and then trim them down, and then when it's painted back the alpine white, it won't be noticeable. And I figured, since I got this double neck at such a good price, and it is an Epiphone, I like everything about the Epiphone except for the headstocks. I don't really care for the lopped off ears. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to add the ears back to the Epiphone. It's still a work in progress. I haven't got it exactly shaped yet. I've still got some shaping to do. And then maybe, depending on how well it comes out, just a tiny bit of wood filler if it needs it. That's not really an issue on this guitar because it's painted a solid color. If it was a transparent color, then that might be an issue. But I used a piece of mahogany wood. I'll show you right here. What I done was I took a piece of mahogany. You can also use maple. They use maple in the neck. I would suggest trying to find the wood as close as you could to match what they used in the original build of the guitar. I think they use maple in this guitar, but I just like working with mahogany better. It's a easier wood to shape. There's not a lot of grain in it, so you can see it's easy to shape. Never use pine. Pine, the grain is spread apart so far, it makes it very complicated to get a good even cut. So don't use pine. If you do anything like this, use something with a really tight grain. Maple would be good. Mahogany's super good. I mean, you know, in a pinch, I guess you could even use poplar if you're going to paint over it, and it's not a transparent paint. So, let me show you real quick. The first thing I done was I filed where the ears was lopped off, and it kind of has that little bevel look to it. And what I used to do that with was just a file that's kind of rounded on the bottom, flat on the top. It's got a coarse and a fine, and you can start out with a coarse and then switch over to the fine, and that works fairly well. But what I done is I stuck primarily to the rounded file surface. I didn't really use the flat surface, except for the one job where when I just very lightly, don't Don't put a lot of pressure on your file. Just kind of keep it at 90 degrees and just keep filing. And you'll see as the paint peels away where you're doing more filing or less filing, and just get that down to a flat surface. It doesn't really take a lot to do that. Do that on both sides. And once you get it down to a flat surface, then take you a piece of construction paper like the white poster board and put behind it, and then trace the head of your headstock. And then when you do that, then sit down with your poster board and just kind of lightly draw out how the ears are going to go back onto your headstock. And once you do that, cut that poster board out, and then take you a piece of, like I was talking about, wood, the mahogany, maple. Don't really use poplar unless you have to. And get it down to a thickness that's just a small, just a tiny bit wider than your headstock. So then that way when you glue it on, it's going to be just a teeny bit wider, but then you can contour it down to the size that your headstock is. And then you can start shaping it into the ears that you're looking for. I would suggest when you do that, take masking tape. I use that blue tape that they use for painting, and put it over the headstock, front and back, on the sides. So then that way when you're doing the filing, you don't rough up the finish on the original headstock. Because I want to leave everything like it is. And once I get this shaped and finished up, there is a company, StuMac, which just is short for Stuart McDonald. You can find them on the internet. They have all the colors to fix guitars, to work on guitars, to modify guitars. But you can find the original black for the headstock. I can find the Alpine white to replace on the back of the headstock. So then that way the color matches pretty well perfectly. So when I'm done with this job, it will look, well, as good as I can get it. So I just thought I would show you. I thought a double neck was kind of an extreme. I mean, it's like doing two guitars in one. And they're not exactly identical. This one is a little bigger, wider headstock than the 6-string. So when I was doing the ears, it was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to make them look almost the same, but they're totally different. And another thing I found out, maybe just on my Epiphone guitar, maybe all of them, I don't know. But when you trace it out, I would have thought it would be exactly symmetrical. I imagine because it's a wood product. There is just a little bit of variance. When you take the traced out poster board where tracing out for the ears, flip it around and put it back onto the headstock, it's just a shade bit off to one side. I was amazed, you would think something that they just whip out, 100 to 1, that it would be exactly the same, but it's not. So that you have to account for the little bit of variance on your guitar if you decide to do this, and just take your time. Don't do this when you're in a rush or in a hurry. Do it when you have time and you're nothing going on, nothing to do, and then that way you're not rushed and you can take your time. And then when you're doing the filing and you're doing the gluing up, and what I've done is I use Titebond wood glue to put these ears on. And another thing is when you're putting them on, especially if you're going to do it on like the red transparent color on some of the guitars, make sure your wood grain matches. Make sure you match the way the wood grain's running to the same way the wood grain's running on your headstock. Because if not, it's going to look kind of funky when you put your transparent color on it and the wood grain's running one way, and then your ears, the wood grain's running the other way. So make sure your wood grain is running exactly the same as on your headstock. But anyway, I just thought I would kind of give you an idea of what the ears back on an Epiphone double neck kind of looks like. All right, check you later.